Oseo.
Oseo.
That's a Cherokee greeting, and wave the great feather for the good of it. I'm rather continuing from my previous Coyote talks. I think it was a couple of weeks ago. My theme then was speaking of ancient Egypt here in Native America. So I'm kind of continuing with that idea here. And today I might call it, Egypt, Hopi, Yaqui, Hawaii, and maybe a little more. And I'm going to start out with Egypt, if we go all the way up here to the top. And this is my creation. I created this. Anybody who's seen anything of Egypt is probably going to recognize her. This is Ma'it. Ma'it is figured this way with the, I think, vulture wings. The name of the vulture in Egypt is Mut, and the name of mother is Mut, so they go together. And other goddesses sometimes are depicted the same way in Egypt. This one is Ma'it. And what she is that she is the moral axis for the country, for the society. She is morality, she is truth, justice, law, honesty, all of those good things here. And that's pretty much what the mainstay or core of the ancient society was, Ma'it. However, if you ever think the idea of history repeating itself, even if it's very long ago, there was a long, long ago an Egyptian king whose name, surprisingly, was Thutmose, and he decided that morality was an option, not an obligation. So he set about destroying everything that would remind anybody of law and order and truth and honesty and justice, and he destroyed her shrines, burned her feathers, did all of those kind of things, So even long range, it does seem that history can come around again. So history didn't say what happened to that king. We'll see what happens to this one here. But her symbol is the feather. It's the upright feather by itself, or as you can see up here, she has an upright feather in her headband. You'll see in Native America people, especially if you go to a powwow, you will see Native American women wearing a headband with an upright feather here. And the feather as a symbol, when I say wave the great feather, this is an Egyptian ritual. Waving the feather maps onto itself. This is a symbolic act here. And I have here, this is an upright vulture feather. So all of that gets us started with these relationships. What I'm interested in is that the European American view or fable about the history here in this country is deficient. And so I'm providing supplements to that deficiency to really show that people have been coming here to this country from other parts of the world, very importantly from the Mediterranean and different parts of the Mediterranean, including Egypt. And these people are still living here, no matter what has been done by the dominant culture to try and erase or suppress or to annihilate our memories and our culture. And like I said, I'm showing a supplement, to those ideas here. If I go down below here, this is my rendering of the cosmic hawk. His name is being Heru or Horus and so forth. Again, remember, all of these names are Greek names. They're Greek names being spoken by me in English here. So this is Heru or Horus, but he is the cosmic hawk. And in the Egyptian, H-or, you can put it that like that, also means face, like the face of heaven, the face of the sky, as well as the name of Horus or Heru. So that's how I have this here, like that. The next thing is in Nevada. In Pyramid Lake, Nevada here. It's a very, very large, very, very ancient lake. I think it has maybe the only lake that still has the ancient water from the Ice Age or the icebergs or whatever they were. Something like that. Well, here's a gallery picture of my painting here that looks like a sphinx. That's what I call it, the Sphinx of Pyramid Lake. It's very, very, very large here. And in ancient times, evidently, people of Egyptian culture, or came from Egypt, and saw it the way I do, and painted all through this very legible and comprehensible, totally comprehensible Egyptian paintings, painted in red here. And we go down here. Here's my rendition of the pyramid that's in Pyramid Lake that gave it its name. How it got that name was an American explorer everybody's heard of as John Fremont here. And he had been to Egypt. And he had seen the great pyramid of Cheops. And he and his group had come down the other side of the lake. I kind of call that like the northwest side of the lake. And the sun was shining on this pyramid, I've seen it myself, that looked as white as the pyramid in Egypt. And that's how he called it the name. It's amazing that he gave this the name because he seen the Egyptian pyramid. Little did he know, so did other people long ago. The Egyptian name for this is Benben. Benben is like the emerging stone, or they call it Tefnut, something like that. The original emergence of or the earth or life or something like that. So all of this is seen in ancient Egypt. Now here I'm showing this. There are many paintings. All this is just a samplings. These are samplings of this. And this one I've made because it's very legible. It's on a tufa, which is very bumpy, like this. And it's painted in red, in fact very dark red, pretty much this size. And it is of the Egyptian goddess Bast. Best means fire. Bastet is the goddess of fire, and she's always figured as a cat. So you see the head of her is a cat, and this is the flame. This is the flame, and these are actually pincers, or we call like tongs for fire, to have the tea. Now this is the moon, and the person who made this carefully inscribed this, like etched it into the rock so it would show out white. And this is Het. Het is a birth house, like saying she's giving birth to the moon. Would be the best, simplest way to say that. So that's very, very explicit of many paintings there that are were very legible. This here is also very interesting, which is there. This is figuring as Kheper or Khepra, who is figured usually as a scarab beetle. If we can see this, here is an Egyptian scarab beetle, who is usually the amulet or something like that for Khepra. And it's because this creature rolls a ball of dung along the ground like that, so they think that reminds them of somebody rolling the sun here. So Khepra also is for the rising sun. And that where it is placed here in this creation of all these rocks in tufa, is down low where you can see where there had one time been water. That's what I should say, that this is all more or less on the edge of an ancient lake. And in ancient Egypt, lakes, they has all kind of lakes, mythical lakes. What they might have exactly called this lake, I don't know. You could make one up. You know, the lake of life could even be that. And I chose, this is a stone, you know, from there. You can see it's, you know, encrusted, you know, with some kind of barnacles or something, because that's the way that it actually looks. It's larger than this, but in the myth that these all are aligned with, it's actually saying, you know, I'm coming up out of the primal water, and the bushes cover my eyes, meaning as the sun comes up, there are clouds. We've seen that. We've all seen that. So that's why I rendered it this way. Vivian and I, who is a native there of Pyramid Lake, and her ancestors as well, like that, she's very, very informative, and I wouldn't know Pyramid Lake without knowing her. We began seeing all of these things years and years ago, so we really made a tour or pilgrimage going around the lake and searching out these ancient paintings, which are here and there around the lake. And some of them are very legible. And last week I produced one, and this one I'm giving you a fuller size of this. It's not on this monument itself. It is in some other rock along the shore of the lake, and it is actually is the Horus. It is the hawk Horus, who is emerging out of the mound, or rabbit's mound, which is also called the horse, the mound of Osiris here. And the piece itself, painted on the rock, it's kind of a dented in rock that's light colored. Maybe it was like tufa, but it's about this high, like, you know, over 2 to 3 feet high. So the stem would look much more like, you know, the ascent of the hawk. And these are kestrel feathers. The hawk or falcon, both names are used. In Egypt, the name Bik or Bak or Horbak means the bird, the hawk. Here, so any of those, and it may be, you know, a combination of birds in some illustrations, but I think the one that they definitely, the people who came from Egypt to the southwest here, definitely adopted the American kestrel. And so these are the kestrel feathers for this. And this is to simulate the head of Osiris, who is in the mound. And his name, Horus's name, is, you know, the good rabbit, you know, or the beautiful hare. And now I have this here, and here's a little picture of the hawk Horus. This is painted at Pyramid Lake. This same concept I presented last week is out here east of San Diego. The people the Americans call Koya, or the Malawetam, or definitely people who have come from Egypt and have, up until they were removed by the Americans a while back, have maintained an Egyptian part of the culture, which includes Horus, the hawk, and the head of Osiris. So that's why I have all of that there. So I think I've got that part covered. Then we can come over here to this. This is my replication of a petroglyph. This petroglyph is located in eastern California near Ridgecrest, a very, very well-known, celebrated petroglyph site that everybody knows there. A little petroglyph canyon. There's thousands of petroglyphs there. And this one I found there. It's very large, you know, I don't know, maybe three feet long and high, and very, very deeply carved in the rock, which is right here at eye level. There's a little narrow passageway there where this is carved So the person who carved it was, right there. He was standing right where I'm standing, and carved it. And it looks very old. It looks very, very, very old, And it's Egyptian. It's exactly Egyptian. And what is it? It is the petroglyph of Ammon. And I had actually, worked it out. It's the name that English uses for God, G-O-D, in Egypt is called Neter. It's actually written N-T-R, Neter. And the hieroglyphs, the Greek word again, hieroglyphs in Egypt is called Medu, Neter, which seems to be to say the qualities of like that. So that's the best we can do. So this is the Neter of Ammon. And in Egyptian it says, Yoa Neb Tahwe, I, Lord of the two lands. This is Yoa, the tail, Yoa, and Neb, this is a basket. And the word for that is Neb, and that's the way it's being used here as the Lord. And here, obviously, is, the two, Yue, is the two lands. So this is very specifically an Egyptian petroglyph of Ammon. Ammon is a little bit more difficult. He definitely is the, we could call it the precept, the prior template for the later Mid-Eastern God, whatever word they want to use, El, Yahweh, and all like that, is originally Ammon. And again, this is a Greek rendering of it. Actually, you would say, this is a reed, second a reed, and you would say, so, Ahman, like that. And his symbol is also the head of a ram. And so the ancient 3 million-year-old sea creature is called an Ammonite. Which came first? Ammon the Egyptian or Ammon the sea creature, the Ammonite here. To put God, the word God to Ammon, in other words, Yah, say to God Ammon, God is the mask of Ammon. And you got everything that goes from there. Once that you're in the study of these things or have courses in these things, you can see it. The what we're calling the decipherment and translation of ancient Egyptian happened, started around 1850, the turn of the century. These things had been deciphered and published, and everybody now could see exactly what had happened, So the different characters, let's say, of the Bible, we can call it like that, are really later aliases of earlier Egyptian personalities, characters, or divinities, various things like that. Homa is the Hebrew name for Mot. What Mot is to Kepra, Homa is to Yahweh. Exactly that translation here. So all of this is to sort of help you along like that. The next thing we want to do is Hawaii. And a little bit of a qualification for that. I have a lifelong connection with Hawaii. First, a family. The family I was born into stemmed directly from Hawaii. And then in the military, I was in the Navy there. In fact, the executive commander on the ship that I was on was a native Hawaiian. And then eventually I actually married a young Hawaiian dancer. And that entered me into the culture that I could learn the meanings of the dance and the songs and things like that. So it gave me an actual cultural entry here. So that's a little bit of a qualification. And from time to time, I find myself, in the theme of Hawaii. I had traveled there a few times, and recently, now it turns out 2016, myself and Claudia and Jack, we all went there as guests of a lifelong friend of Cindy and Sharky, who went from here to there and were in a landscaping business. So we had a wonderful opportunity to be there in Oahu here. I don't recall that before I was there that I actually thought of Egypt here. But once I was there, it began to show up. And that's what I'm just presenting a little bit of, is Egypt in Hawaii. And we don't know how long ago this may have happened here. But some of the evidence began to show up more and more to me. We had the loan of her wonderful little car, and we could drive all around the island, Oahu. When I was there, in many earlier years, I had a Jeep, and I could drive all around. The roads were very little then, about 1960, Now there's a lot more people, a lot more cars, and bigger roads. But just the same, we drove all around, discovering, mainly for me, petroglyphs. So I found a lot of petroglyphs, and I've replicated many of them. I've drawn them and replicated them. And that's just a little bit of what I'm trying to show here. Here. And if we could just start with this here. I've made it look very good. But we took a plane from Oahu to Maui. A long time ago, when I was younger and there, my uncle was the pilot of the they call Inter-Island Airways. He was married to Tilly. His name was Ursel Hart. And so Tilly Hart was native Hawaiian. They lived in Waimanalo. So on this occasion, he no longer, of course, is flying. But we flew over to Maui. And there's kind of a low part, like my impression, there's kind of a northwest and a southeast orientation from where I was there. It seemed like in the middle of Maui. And to the northwest, to the side that way, this is the heart of Maui. I had to pencil down some notes here, So that's called the Yao Valley. Wailuku, Maui. Pu'ukuhui is the heart of ancient Maui. So that's where I'm saying where we are. And there's a state park there. In that state park, there is a monolith, a huge, I guess it's a rock, but it's very, very, very big, very by itself there. And I recognized that this was Egyptian. It's actually called, Yao is the phallus of Kanala Mana, the radiant light, like that. And that it has actually an Egyptian chant that I found and recognized went with it. Yao dwelt with me in the breathing space of immensity when the universe was dark and water was everywhere. There was no glimmer of a dawn, nothing clear, no light. Then Yah opened his mouth, saying this, that I might end my stony stillness by declaring, O darkness, now become a light, possessing no darkness, aho, and at once light showed herself. And my translation of what I recognized was Egyptian, just to start with. And from there we drove towards the other part I'm calling southeast, and it goes that way. And most of the road is shrouded by tall trees, you can't see much beyond it. But eventually it goes around at the far end of the island and we ascend up. So we're up high. And I remember there was some kind of a farm. I didn't remember what they were farming, but it was referred to as a farm. And we parked up there. We walked down a slope a little bit and there was a great big boulder. There was a great big boulder kind of facing out. And on that boulder was this beautiful petroglyph of this canoe. And I imagine that this was the ancient canoe of Maui. So I want to present this piece here to go with it here. This is called Taihu, the canoe prow. It's at Waikiki Beach. This is the tiki of Kihahwahini, the Mo'o chiefess and priestess and kahuna of Maui. And it was installed in Waikiki by Kamehameha as a shrine, Puanui. So here's what he says to go with this canoe. My canoe sails on. It sails and weathers the storms of Puna. Puna is the land where the woman dwells, the woman who dwells on the summit of mountains. Her canoe is very well known. It was steered with kapu by her brother. This is so. Mahalo. So that's one way we can start off there like that. Let me go over to this. This is also a petroglyph. And this was a very sacred place that Cindy brought us to. So this place is called Kua Niloko, the birthstones, no Haku Hanu. This is for the chiefesses to give birth, to ensure her child would have extra mana and be fully ali'i. And this petroglyph is there. I copied it and I replicated it here. You know, in Egypt you have a lot of eyes. You have the eye of horse. You have the eye of Ra. You have the eye of one person or creature or another. So in Hawaii, I put this up because this is also the eye. This is Kani. Kani is kind of, it seems to me, a combination of Amon and Ma'at. You know, he is the life force that makes everything happen, makes everything work. So he seems, you know, to have something of the ancient Egyptian in him as well. And this is his eye, and it's called, the eye is Maka. And here, this is white coral. She cautioned me not to take any of the coral there at the site. I didn't. These are from the beach. But that the coral are the offerings, you know, and it's called ho'ali, or offerings. And so you see a lot of it. And it's an amazing, large sacred space that Cindy brought us to. And this is the eye of Kani, similar to the Egyptian, and there's a whole telling of it to see into the black earth here. And now we can come over here. I should say up here, I forgot, this is also a petroglyph there that I put Moana into, because this is for the dance, for the hula dance, you know. Now, I'm not going to read the chant right now, but I do have a chant to go with this, but to show that this is also a petroglyph that has to do with the hula dance here. Now I can come down here to this. Everybody knows these, even with the old Trader Joe's used to have tikis, they call it tikis, like that. The Christians, that's who they were, the people who were not islanders and who came to the islands, who saw the islanders like they were uncivilized people, and for some reason Christians consider themselves mallet heads in which they were supposed to go around and smash other people's idols. So that's what they thought these were. So many of these have been destroyed. So we don't, unless somebody comes up with one, have any really old tikis. What they are is that they're ancestral figures. And they're Egyptian. They are the rendering of Amun. Again, Amun is hidden or not seen, so the darkness of it. And the ram. Here I have a Kauai, a Let Desert ram, wooden carved ram's head to give you an idea that the ram's head was definitely figured in for the experiences even of other gods who would pass within the domain of Amun, would have a ram's head. And this one, they usually always have this corrugation here, which is where the name of Amun, the corrugated horde of the ram, comes from. And so these tikis go way back to Amun. And in Egypt, the name Ka means double, but then they had Ka statues. And these Ka statues were regarded and treated very much the same as the Hawaiians treat the tikis. So the tiki, I don't know exactly how the two languages correspond, but you do have the K sound in there, tiki and Ka in there. And in both cases, the Egyptians and the Hawaiians, the ancestors, their ancestors are absolutely indissoluble, absolutely permanent, and so forth. So the tiki, any of these tikis, is going back and back and back to Amun in Egypt. So that is very outstanding to me. However, I began to realize, the Egyptian while I was in Hawaii. I'm not sure if it was the tikis or whether it was Maui, because Maui is definitely a Libyan Egyptian name who is definitely a tiki, and evidently was somebody, because even in the chants, Maui is still regarded as the tiki navigator, which is what the name Maui actually means in Libyan Egyptian here. So we have that very strongly here. Next thing I'm going to go to is here to look at this figure here. This is a Hopi carving of a character called Kokopelli. The modern Americans somehow have taken a special delight to this character of Kokopelli. I'm not sure why, but they have Kokopelli all over the place. Outside of that, Kokopelli is also figured in rock art all over the place as well. But whatever the Americans seem to think that Kokopelli is, probably does not include what the meaning of Kokopelli is to the Hopi. Last week I presented another piece from the Hopi. The Hopi are Egyptians, and evidently they know it, because while we lived in Arizona, and Claudia had a girlfriend, a Hopi girlfriend, Kalatika, and she told us a lot of things, that they had a special ceremony down by San Luis at the head of the Sea of Cortez, or the Baja Gulf there, of recalling ceremonially when they had arrived here. They came here. At that time the Colorado River was free flowing, and it flowed, a lot of it's been silted in now. We didn't attend this ceremony, but we were told about it, that they had come from stepping stones from the south. And one of the other evidences of that is this basket. We were friends with a family, the Sufkis, Jean and Ruby Subki, who made baskets. We were at a basket gathering conference with them in Tucson, and they belong to the Women's Lakot Society, which is a women's society of the Water Clan. And they have maintained a particular basket ceremony. And the kind of basket that these people, the Lakot Society, brought from the Near East, as I'll refer to it, is exactly this. This is made with rabbit brushes. This is an old one. Some of them are brightly colored, still making this. These were found in archaeological excavations in the Near East. I've seen the photos, exactly the same. So this is another evidence of these people called Hopi or Hopitu, who have come from the eastern delta of the Nile, overlooking the turquoise mines of the Sinai, and they might have even been guardians of that. Some of their kachinas may have actually been adopted from the Egyptian gods or goddesses who were guarding those mines here. And so this is itself some hard evidence. Now a little more about what Kokopelli is about. Now I had mentioned here up at Pyramid Lake, there's a huge painting, appropriately figured, of the creator deity, we'll try to call him that, Tem, or Temu, or sometimes Atem, like that. It's a horned serpent, is how he's figured, all like that. So it's like a giant snake, mythically speaking, of course. Kokopelli here is the avatar of that primal creator, Tem or Temu, who is in an erogenous engagement with a woman to impregnate her with an active principle as a form of serpent, which enters her and becomes one with her body, as it were a natural part of her own body, and which she nourishes as her own new self. Kokopelli is the originating of a continuity of becoming. This becoming into existence is called sinuous, and the value that she gives it is the form of its expression. So that is the explanation, and you can see why he's always curved like this, because he's sinuous, He's somehow has, the snake in him, you would say. And he's always playing a flute, evidently, to, attract the woman or maiden, whoever that might be. Another thing, I could bring you over here to the Yaquis. Claudia and I were padrinos, of the Yaquis for many years. We lived adjacent to the village of Guadalupe in Arizona. And I actually had, we can say, like a godfather that continuously informed me of the ceremony. And Juan Casillas, I had met him at the Pima Reservation, and he had brought me into the Yaqui community there, and we became a part of it. So I had learned all of these things. Now the Yaquis, they are descendants of Egyptian Copts. They are Egyptians, they put it bluntly. They are Egyptians. The Copts is the name for Egyptians who were Christians, plainly. And their use of language, their way of writing, their side of the story, has been very important for people who want to decipher the ancient Egyptian world here. So the Copts is their name. They are from Coptos. Coptos is a place on the Nile River. You can kind of look at it like midway, and the river has a bend in it. There's a real noticeable bend in it, and that's where Coptos is. I think it's called something like Chemis now, and what it means is this is the place where Isis wept, and what she wept about was, in this case, Horus. Horus is her son, and then there's different ways of saying, that how she gave birth to Horus and so forth. And anyway, he is the avenger of the murder or assassination of Osiris, who is either the husband or the brother or something of Isis, some connection there, relation. And so Horus is going to avenge, that assassination. So the villain Seth is who is rendered as, he's going to try and get rid of this potential assassin. So the mother, Isis, that she hides him in the marshes, in the tules here, or papyrus, the different words for it, like that, in this place. And subsequently he gets stung by a scorpion, and he dies from that sting. And this gives, in the myth, the opportunity for Isis, who is a medicine woman and the chief kahuna and everything of the ancient world, to come up with the kind of spells to cure him here. So the main goddess for all of this is figured right here. She's called Serket or Selkwet. Anyway, basically, she's the scorpion goddess. The name for scorpion itself, is Tabit, meaning earth bee, because it stings, here. And this is her rendition here. And above here, this is my replication of a painting of Serket with a woman with a semi body of that. All of this is something that goes together here. Just last week we were out there in Borrego Springs. If you go out there, all around the desert, there are these huge metal sculptures of ancient creatures like woolly mammoths, wild horses, ground sloths, all kinds of things like that. And we found out there a giant scorpion. All these things are made by a Mexican man who has an incredible talent and ability, because these things are not funky, they're very, very, very well made. And so we found this giant scorpion. I don't know how to say how big it was, monstrous, like that. It was just by itself confronting a giant grasshopper here. And then we came back into town at Borrego Springs and went to the Desert Center. And in the Desert Center here I found this nice little soft scorpion. So that's what he's doing here. So further clue over here, this is a mask from the Yaqui. This is a Yaqui ceremonial mask they call a pascola. And on the sides of his mask is painted a scorpion. And so I'd seen this. I'd been in many years, in that ceremony, and I noticed these scorpions on these masks and other ceremonial things on swords and the Chapieca masks like that. So I began to realize this. One of the times our comadre, Anita, in the last procession that we had coming back up the Plaza Tuda Tiopo to the temple, Comadre Anita was standing alongside the temple, and usually it's like on Easter Sunday, the clouds are up there, and a ray of sun came right down to her, and she was wearing this black t-shirt with a wonderful picture of Nefertiti on her, and she had cut her long hair in that style, like that. So as soon as I got out of the procession, I went over and told her what I just saw, and she said, "I know, that's why I was standing here." So all this is to say that the Yaquis also the Yaqui language, in a language study called, Semitic elements in the Uto-Aztecan language is what this language is in. Includes the Yaquis as having, in linguistic terms, the most complete linguistic terms. In other words, they're not loan words. That shows that they are speaking a language. In fact, Yaqui is a foreign name for them. Their name is Yohemi, which would mean in Egyptian, venerable people, and so forth. So all this is just to really show that these people are also have a ceremony and a culture that is very, very reminiscent of the culture of the desert in the region of Coptos here. And the last thing we're going to touch on here, the most famous, anybody think of Egypt, they're going to think for the Sphinx. So you can see that here. And on the Sphinx there are this image of the pyramids. Anybody know anything of Egypt? That's exactly what they think of. These pyramids are tombs. They're tombs for the king here. And this head of this Sphinx has been re-carved, refashioned at a later time. And what's curious is that because of how that appears, there's all kind of episodes. Egyptians themselves have believed this version of it. This is a redaction of the original, and have repeated it. In other words, there are other sphinxes, small ones, smaller than this. The name sphinxes, of course, is Greek, and it has nothing to do with anything about this at all. The one name that is recorded for in Egypt is Hu, or Huel. Huel. Whatever that particularly means is the way that this huge thing has been referred to. Now if you go all the way over there, you can see this is my illustration. This is the original Huel, original Sphinx. This place where the pyramids are is a graveyard. These are tombs. And who was guarding the tomb but the jackal? And that is his Jackal Lake, the Lake of the Jackal, it's actually called. And ingeniously, all this has been now figured out. They have been able to engineer canals, or channel I would call it, from the river to fill in and make this lake like a moat around this figure that in the Greek name of Anubis. There's different ways to render this, but basically he's a jackal that is guarding the cemetery. That's what he is. And in the tombs there are paintings that go along with this. Somehow it hadn't been realized before, but from all that I learned here, I thought I'd try my hand and show you that this is the original appearance of this huge, strange statue that's been called the Sphinx, with all kind of riddles and stories about it. But I would call this as Coyote on his lake. Yeah, that would be it. That's about what I'm going to read. One other thing to do this. Okay. Yes. One other thing that I'm going to mention that is also Egyptian in Native America is vowel singing. Ha ni na na, ha ni na na, ha ni na na, ni na na, ni na na, ha ni na. Vowel singing is Egyptian. The Egyptian priests all chanted in vowels. So that's where we have inherited it from. I'm going to finish this with a little poem. This Yeah, I'm looking at it. The foam of the sea, the pure white foam of the sea, who but I, who has tasted the foam of the sea, beholds in the midst of the ocean of awareness, the universe, as a mass of its foam on all sides. It is now said to be Maui himself. Such a one is with ease steeped in the exquisite ocean of immortality, which surges up and plunges on. That is not the one that I thought I was going to read. I've lost it. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Then I can't find a poem. Thank you for attending this interesting excursion into Egypt here in America, Native America, and Turtle Island.